Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Mets Daily on the Fan Arch Network. John Saponaro here with you today and every day to talk about our New York Mets. But before we get started, a quick shout out goes to our friends over at Kalshi for sponsoring the video for a limited time. Use the code FANARCHBASEBALL on the Kalshi app to get $10 when you trade 10. Another day, another win for the New York Mets. And I know it's too little too late. I know it's frustrating. I know it's annoying. I know it's tiring. I know some of you want the Mets to lose despite claiming to be Mets fans through and through because you want certain people to be punished and you want to get your pound of flesh. But I am not that kind of Mets fan. I still want this team to win. You're not guaranteed anything by losing. You're not getting a top draft pick that's going to translate immediately like you do in the NFL. These things don't necessarily mean much. A bad team is a bad team, and it doesn't matter if you're the worst team in the league or the fifth worst team or the seventh worst. It doesn't matter. So I still want this team to go on a run. I still want this team to play, a month of really good baseball at least. I don't want this team to even come close to 100 losses. I don't want this team to sniff 90 losses if they can avoid it. And they've got a tall task to try to avoid some of those things, but I want to see them put together a representative season at some point, or a representative portion of this season, so that when we get to the end, it's not so awful. It's not so abysmal. Because again, in 2027, regardless of how much baseball is played with the lockout, the Mets should be competitive. How competitive, whatever. We can talk about that stuff as we get further and further into this season and as we get into the offseason and the moves that need to be made. And we've already talked a little bit about some of the holes that they have, and all that is fair. But I still look at a team on the field in 2026 that has Juan Soto and AJ Ewing and Carson Bench and Christian Scott and Nolan McLean and Francisco Lindor and Francisco Alvarez and Shawn Manaea, people who are Jorge Polanco, people who are going to be here in 2027. So I don't want this thing to bottom out now that people are here. Now that the lineup looks right, now that they're getting contributions from people that, again, maybe too little too late, and that's annoying. We'll talk about Shawn Manaea in a second, but there are people that are going to be on this roster that you need to get more from, and I would feel more comfortable about getting more from them in 2027 if they show some of that here in 2026, and that's what the Mets have done. Also, I should mention, and I heard this on the postgame right when it started, and I was sort of taken aback by it because I didn't think it was this long despite how bad they've been over this stretch, but the Mets won their first series in just about a month since they beat the Atlanta Braves, and it's just, man, that's a long time. So again, when we did the series preview for this series against the Royals are bad, the Mets are bad. Going into this series, one game separated them record-wise. But this is a team that the Mets should beat, and this is a team that the Mets did beat. And this is also a team, by the way, even in the game that they lost, which was an awful, awful effort for the Mets to start the series, the Mets scored a lot of runs against this Royals team. 12 runs, 6 runs, 7 runs. The Mets played some good baseball in the lineup. The Mets, after that first game, pitched better in the rotation, pitched better in the bullpen. The Mets have played crisp defensively for the most part this series. So, I know Soto had an error out in left field that he was annoyed about even after hitting a big home run later on. But anyway, this is more of the same of what we talked about on yesterday's show. It's the second day in a row where the Mets get good starting pitching. They get good pitching out of the bullpen. They get timely hitting and contributions throughout the lineup, and they play good defense. And again, it could all be so simple. It could be that easy. You get things like that, you put together a game like that, and that's how you win baseball games. Simple concept has not come easy to the Mets this year. But on back-to-back days, and I said it on yesterday's show, if we look at the entirety of the schedule, how many times can you say the Mets have gotten good starting pitching, gotten good bullpen, gotten good contributions from the lineup, played good defense? How many times could you say that? Maybe counted on 2 hands? And now they do it in back-to-back days. I know it's against a bad team, and I know the season's over, but I still look for those positives. And oh, by the way, they did it without Francisco Lindor in the lineup. He came in late in the game, last inning, for defense. He didn't get an at-bat. And they did it without Jorge Polanco in the lineup. So it goes to show you, too, when you have guys like AJ Ewing contributing at a high level, and Carson Bench contributing at a high level, and Juan Soto being Juan Soto, and Bo Bichette being Bo Bichette, not only is this lineup lengthened when everyone is here, healthy, and playing, but this lineup feels deeper just knowing that you can go to a Lindor. just knowing that you can go to a Polanco. Guys are going to rest. Guys are going to get days off, whether they're coming off of injury or not. That's modern baseball. You sit guys from time to time. But Jared Young comes up big. Mark Vientos gets hurt. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Tyrone Taylor comes up big. All of a sudden, you just start getting these contributions from other folks. And it just goes to show you what this lineup was orchestrated to be and what this lineup could have been. And again, if you want to take the pessimistic approach of, well, it happens now, it should have happened before, and that's a bummer, and I'm even more mad about it, I suppose you can do that. I'm trying to look forward. I'm trying to move past it. I've come to terms with the fact that this season is done. And when you come to terms with the fact that this season is done, you shouldn't let it hurt you anymore. You shouldn't let it affect you anymore. You shouldn't live and die by these losses anymore. You should find the positives in the victories. And you can even find some positives in the losses. Because, man, when you score 12 runs and lose, when you make 6 errors in a game, in one of the worst baseball games I've ever watched, like, how much worse can some of these things get? We've already seen the worst of the worst. Don't let it hurt you anymore. Let it roll off your back. So let's talk about some of the positive. Shawn Manaea looked really, really good in this game. He goes 7 innings, gives up 6 hits, 3 runs. One of them was on a leadoff home run to start the game from Lane Thomas. Settled in nicely after that. 1 walk, 6 Ks. And look, like I said before, if you want to take the pessimistic approach, you could say, man, this is what the Mets needed from Shawn Manaea last year, and he didn't give it to him. And more importantly, this is what the Mets needed from Shawn Manaea at the start of the season. He didn't give it to him. That's true. You're right. I'm not going to dispute that with you. I'm not going to tell you you're wrong because you're not wrong. But what I will tell you is this is still positive and encouraging and promising because, like I said before, Shawn Manaea makes $25 million next year. He is going to be on this roster. The Mets need to get something out of him, and I would love for him to be able to be in the rotation as a 5th starter. Will that come to pass? I have no idea. There's too much time between now and the start of next season to talk about it. But knowing that he's probably going to be here, I want to see positive signs to see that he can be that guy who can be a 5th starter for you. And games like today, games like yesterday show you that he can do that, that it's still in there. Now, is $25 million great value to pay a 5th starter? No, we understand that. We understand that this is not a perfect scenario, but I'd rather him be a 5th starter and pitch to a, 4-something ERA than be unpitchable, than be a guy who needs to be in the bullpen because he can't be in the rotation, a guy who can't reach his velocity, a guy who can't locate his pitches, a guy who can't finish his mechanics. I don't want that. And look, games like the Mets got from Shawn Manaea are good for any team in any season. It doesn't matter if you're in it, out of it, above 500, under 500, the best team, the worst team, because it saves you. It allows you to rest the bullpen. It allows you to save arms for trade value, right? You don't want to burn out a guy like Luke Weaver if you're going to try to trade him or whatever the case may be. It allows you to save guys who maybe don't have a lot of bullets to give. Like, all of these pitchers are so fragile. Their pitching ability is finite, right? So when you get a guy like Shawn Manaea, who's towards the end of his career, closer to the end of his career than the beginning, and he goes out and he gives you 7 innings, well, that allows you to now, for the next game with Nolan McLean on the mound, if you have to have a little bit of a quicker hook with Nolan McLean because he's a guy you're going to invest in the future, and if you have to take Nolan McLean out after 5 or after 6, you feel more comfortable doing that because Shawn Manaea saved your bullpen. So Shawn Manaea doing what he did today is important for anybody. It's important for any team at any point to get starting pitching like that. And it doesn't matter if you're in it or not. Obviously, it's better if you're in it, and we all want them to be in it, and it's unfortunate that they're not in it. But you can never throw back or throw away 7 innings of solid pitching, 8 innings of solid pitching. Like, that's going to always help you. It's going to help you later on in the season. Again, when you have guys like Christian Scott who are going to come up on innings limits, it all has a trickle-down effect. None of this stuff exists in a vacuum. We saw what the Mets not getting solid starting pitching in the second half of 2025 meant for this team. They burned out their bullpen. These guys petered out. A lot of guys got hurt too, and I don't know if that's a factor or not, but you saw Reed Garrett go down with Tommy John. You saw Tyler McGill go down with Tommy John. You saw Daniel Nunez go down with Tommy John. Like, Guys getting hurt left and right. So you want to just look at this for the positive that it is, rather than say, where was this in April? Can you say, where was this in April? Sure. I'm not going to tell you not to. I'm just going to tell you to try to look at this in a way where if this season no longer matters the way that we wanted it to, you have to look at it from a different perspective. That being said, baseball season is here, and now you can trade every game on Kalshi. You know what I do? I sit down to record this show, and right before I hit the red button, pop on over to the Kalshi app, see what I can find that's got some value for you, and see what I can find that might be interesting for you on the Kalshi app. And for today's game, Mets versus the Boston Red Sox at Citi Field, I think the best value is the under 6.5 runs scored in the game. The no on 6.5 runs scoring in this game is trading at 37 cents a share, which means $100 will get you $258. This is Sonny Gray versus Nolan McLean. This is two offenses that have had a hard time scoring over the course of the season. This is a Red Sox offense that is being led right now by Wilson Contreras, who also got hit by a pitch and needed to come out of a game. We'll see how effective and how healthy he is. But a lot of other people on the Red Sox not really providing much relief in terms of offensive ability. And going back to what I said in the Blue Jays start, this is a team in the Red Sox that has never seen Nolan McLean before. And it doesn't matter how much you study, doesn't matter how much you watch tape, it doesn't matter how much you hear about spin rate, there ain't nothing like standing in the box against a guy like Nolan McLean. So I think Nolan McLean is poised to have a really good game against a really poor lineup. And the Mets, yes, they are trending in the other direction. The Mets have scored a lot of runs. Like I said, against the Royals, the Mets lineup looks refreshed. The Mets lineup looks reinvigorated. That is all true. But Sonny Gray's had a damn good season. He's a damn good pitcher. So I think under 6.5 runs is a really good proposition. And once again, $100 will get you $258 on Kalshi. You're trading against peers in a live market, meaning there is no house. And as the probability changes, you can buy into and out of your position. For a limited time, download the Kalshi app. Use the code FANARCHBASEBALL to get $10 when you trade 10 Kalshi. Trade on anything. Must be 18 and over. Restrictions and eligibility requirements apply. Event contract trading involves risks and may not be suitable for all investors. Prices, values, and available markets may differ from those mentioned. For more information, see kalshi.com/regulatory. Now, some of the bad, or if you're cynical, some of the good, I suppose. Mark Vientos headed to the IL, which probably will not end his season, literally, but it will effectively end his season. Mark Vientos hit on the hand while batting, which you never like to see. Very painful. I don't know if you guys have ever broken a hand. I've broken a bone in my hand, the fourth metacarpal. It hurts, and it hurts bad. And your whole hand feels weak. Your entire arm for a first, few minutes, 30 minutes feels weak. And it's painful. And to get drilled like that is brutal. So he gets hit. He looked like he was writhing in pain. He comes out of the game, and then Andy Green announces in the post-game press conference that the x-rays show that there's a break. He's headed to the IL. He's probably going to miss several weeks. And like I said, that's going to effectively end his season. I'm sure he'll heal up. Bones are not as bad as soft tissue. There's a pretty strict timeline there, 6 to 8 weeks. Hopefully he'll be able to, kind of get back to baseball activity and then, whatever, a little rehab assignment. But, 6 to 8 weeks, that's already 2 months, and then a rehab assignment. And, you have to start to look at when the minor league seasons come to an end and da-da-da-da-da. So we might not see Mark Vientos for a good long while, and I suppose there's an outside chance that we might not see Mark Vientos for the rest of the season, which means there's an outside chance that we may never see Mark Vientos in a Mets uniform again. Now, you know that I am not a big Mark Vientos fan. I have said a lot of derogatory things about Mark Vientos over my time as a Mets content creator, and even over my time here as the host of Mets Daily. I've called him a low IQ player, a selfish player, a bad baseball player in every aspect of the word that doesn't do a lot of things right. All of that is true. I stand by all of that. I don't enjoy watching Mark Vientos play baseball. Having said that, I don't relish in injuries. I don't want to see somebody get hurt, and I don't think you should either. There's going to be people who are going to come out and say that this is addition by subtraction and that this is a net positive for the Mets. And ultimately, there might be a through line of that that's true. But again, you don't want this to be the reason how they get there. If the Mets would have DFA'd Mark Vientos before this game, I'd be singing an entirely different tune as I come on this show. I'd be dancing. I'd be thrilled because I think he deserves that. But no one deserves to get hurt. No one deserves to suffer an injury. That, quite frankly, just sucks. So in that particular sense, even though I am not a fan of his, I will never wish that upon anybody, and I'm not going to relish in it. I'm not going to revel in it. So for those of you who've been following this show, and then you watch the Mets game today and you see the press conference at the end and you get the news, you might be thinking like, oh, I can't wait to hear what John's going to say. John's going to be so happy. No. That's just bad policy. It's just being a bad human being. It's lacking empathy. It's bad karma, quite frankly. So I don't revel in that. It's a bummer for him. And like I said, it's an extra bummer, even as somebody who doesn't enjoy him on their team. You know, you never want to see somebody's season end potentially. And again, that might have been the last moment with all the baggage and everything going on. Might be the last moment we've seen with Mark Vientos in a Mets uniform, which is also not the way you want to see this stuff happen. So if you were here to tune in to watch me revel in that, sorry to disappoint, but you're never going to get that from me. Not going to celebrate injuries. It's just not a good thing to do. So Mark Vientos, we wish you all the best. Get well soon. Get back on the baseball field. Get back to doing what you want to do. Final segment of the show. That injury to Mark Vientos opened up the door for something that has been a little talked about. It has been a little hinted on, and we finally got to see the first glimpse of it. So Mark Vientos is playing third base in this game. Bo Bichette's playing shortstop. Lindor has the day off. Brett Beatty is at second base. A.J. Ewing is out in center field. Mark Vientos gets hit on the hand early part of the game. I believe it was like the third inning or something. He has to come out, and you think maybe they'll bring Lindor in. And they wound up bringing Lindor in, like I said earlier, in the ninth inning for defense anyway. But I think Andy Green wanted to give Lindor as much of a full day off as he possibly could. It was nice to see, pardon this little digression for a moment, it was nice to see that unlike the last time Lindor had a day off, he was not fully unusable. He was available, which means that he's getting healthier. And that, again, is a big positive for the Mets, not only in 2026, but just moving forward. It's nice to see Lindor out there and being able to be out there. You don't want a player of that caliber to be back too early and to be limited. So seeing him out there in the ninth inning was great. But earlier in the game, the Mets didn't want to go that route. So they kind of have not too many options. And what they decided to do was move Bo Bichette over Bo Bichette was at shortstop. Yes. Oh, so they decided to move Brett Beatty, over to second base or over to third base from second base. They moved A.J. Ewing into second base, and they brought in Tyrone Taylor to play center field. So A.J. Ewing, who obviously has been unbelievable in center field, his future is in center field, but he's played a ton of second base and even some shortstop, through his formative years as a baseball player. And they asked him about it after the game, and he even said, I felt super comfortable over there. I've played there from when he was like 11 or 12 years old to when he was like 18 or 19 years old at second base. So this is a guy who, while he has no major league experience there, he's got a ton of experience in life playing second base. And again, even throughout the minors, spent some time at second base. Now, it was even more refreshing to see that the Mets basically turned around and said, look, A.J. Ewing's future is as a center fielder, but it is nice to know that we can put him at second and he is going to feel comfortable, and he didn't shy away from it. And I do think that's important. One, versatility is important in baseball. You never know what's going to happen. You got a guy like Fernando Tatis Jr., who's a great right fielder, playing some second base for the Padres this year out of necessity. You got a guy like Mookie Betts, who, was a second baseman, moved to right field, was elite in right field, moved back to the infield to play shortstop. You just never know how some of this stuff is going to go, right? You got a guy like Trey Turner, who comes up and there's a need, so he goes out and he plays center field even though he's a shortstop. There's so many examples of this. So Do I think the Mets are better with A.J. Ewing in center field than any other option? Yes. Do I think A.J. Ewing's future is at center field? Yes. Do I think A.J. Ewing's value is super high if he's a center fielder? Yes. All of those things are true. But I like the fact that he felt comfortable and that he was able to go there in a pinch, that he okayed it, that the Mets felt okay with it. But again, that all parties involved were like, yeah, this is cool. We can do this. It's an option, but we know where long-term we'd like him to be. And the reason why I dedicated a whole segment to this on the show today is because in the not too distant future, probably right after the All-Star break, Luis Robert Jr. is coming back. Some of you, again, might not want to hear that, but again, we're not celebrating injuries. If the guy is healthy, the guy needs to come back and eventually be on your baseball team. Now, I don't think Luis Robert Jr. has a future with this team. He has a team option for next season. That's obviously not going to be something the Mets exercise. But in the meantime, you don't really have a lot of options. Once his rehab is up and he's healthy, you're going to have to do something with him. And I think he's going to be back on the Mets in relatively short order. So then the question becomes, what do you do? Well, you certainly cannot sit A.J. Ewing for any kind of prolonged stretch. You can't, because his development is more important than anything you're going to do with Luis Robert Jr. But remember, Marcus Semien is down right now. Brett Baty, while he has a little 8-game or 9-game hitting streak going, hats off to him, Brett Baty is not a guy who deserves everyday reps as a starting player in baseball. He just isn't. He's also not a great second baseman. He's fine. And so if you have the ability to flex A.J. Ewing over to second base for a little while or a couple of days a week to keep his bat in the lineup, not so that you can kowtow to Luis Robert Jr., not so that you can play a guy that's making $20 million, not that you can acquiesce to Luis Robert Jr. and his demands. No, nothing like that. But you might want to show teams that Luis Robert Jr. is healthy and that Luis Robert Jr. can still play defense in the outfield and that Luis Robert Jr. can, if nothing else, still hit left-handed pitching. Because the Mets are going to get Robert back with about 3.5 weeks or so to go until the trade deadline. Now, you're not going to get anything for Luis Robert Jr., but the Mets also didn't give up anything for Luis Robert Jr. So just the ability to clear him off of your roster, if that means in the short term you have to move A.J. Ewing to make room for him so that teams can see what he is capable of, I think that is more beneficial than carrying him for the rest of the season and playing this game anyway, doing this dance anyway, where sometimes A.J. Ewing plays second base. So I guess what I'm saying is, in the short term, over the next few weeks until the deadline, I'd rather see A.J. Ewing play more second base so that Robert can play more center field, so you can deal him, so that August and September, you can just put A.J. Ewing in center field and not even think about it. Because the alternative is you let Robert become kind of a fourth outfielder and you move him around a little bit, and then A.J. Ewing sits a couple times, or A.J. Ewing has to play left field, or Robert has to play left field and Soto goes to DH. I just don't like any of those options over the long term. I would rather see this get sorted out in short order. And I think the way that you do that is short-term pain, quote unquote, for us Mets fans, for long-term relief, which is, I ultimately think, the route that I would go. And I think it's the route that the Mets would go to. You probably have to eat money for Luis Robert Jr., but who cares? Steve Cohen is rich, mega rich, ultra rich. And again, you might not get anything back, but you didn't really give up anything. You're going to get a lottery ticket. You're going to get a 17-year-old infielder in low A. You're going to get the 20-year-old pitching prospect who might be ceiling as a reliever in high A. Like, that's the kind of thing you're going to get back. But whatever, because Luis Robert Jr. is not a part of your future and A.J. Ewing is. So I would look to maximize this by starting the future as quickly as possible. That's going to do it for this episode of Mets Daily. If you haven't subscribed already, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. We're sitting at just over 4,000 subscribers, and we'd love to get to 5,000. And more importantly, we would love for you to be a part of that group. Until next time, I'm John Saponaro. See you on Monday.